We could work with kids that are making poor choices whose needs are not being met inside of the school day for whatever reason. Maybe they need some more physical activity. Maybe they need a mentor. Maybe they need a little physical humbling.
Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how's it going, Aaron?
Great to have you. First and most important question is, how are you doing, Chris? Like, actually, for real, how are you doing?
Wow, that is an excellent question, right? Because usually it's like, hey, how's your day going? And that's you can say good, bad, or whatnot, but how am I actually doing? I'm doing quite well right now. We're in Thanksgiving break. I'm a public educator, and I've felt like I've burned the candle on both ends up until now. And to get a couple of days reprieve and just to know that I got another week in front of me, I am doing really, really, really well. So thank you for asking. How about you?
Dude, I've never had it so good, Chris. Life is going incredible. I got married like 2 months ago, so that's pretty awesome. Um I mean, I can't picture a cooler job than getting to have conversations with people like you in the middle of the day. And so yeah, my parents are healthy. I'm healthy. My wife is healthy. I don't know if there could be anything better than that. So anything else extra on top, I'll take. But yeah, man, it's good. It's really good.
Here, here.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm excited to talk to you about a number of things that we talk a lot about on this podcast, especially the youth. I'm very interested, one, in them because I coach youth baseball, so I'm around those types of kids all the time. I'm also not only interested but also worried at the same time. I think there's a little bit of both. But you're with them on a consistent basis as an educator. So why, maybe in your estimation, are kids struggling so much? Or in the same token, is that just overblown? Are kids not struggling as much as we maybe see from the outside?
I'm going to say they're struggling. They're struggling. I have two children of my own, 19 and 23, and they've gone through the school experience. And like you mentioned, I've been teaching for 20 years, so I'm around kids, each and every day. And I can tell you, like, they're struggling. And one of the things that I see, and it's come up as of late, is like kids are struggling to be kind with one another. Something as simple as conversation starters. They're starting conversations with putting each other down. And that's almost like the social lubricant, and I don't know if it's because of technology and they've kind of like lost their way to seamlessly engage in conversation without saying something mean or demeaning or demoralizing. But the conversation starters are usually like a put down or whatnot. So I'm going to say the kids are struggling, but it's from like a lack of social skills. They're interacting, but the quality of the interaction is not that good. It's like a McDonald's.
Yeah. Is that a big change you've seen over the last 20 years? Anything else that you've noticed that's changed over the last 20 years? I know it's a big question. 20 years is a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different phases over the last 20 years, but as of like the last, like I'll say like 2, 3, 4 years, uh, being mean is really like become a thing. I recently like had to speak with my basketball team. Right, we were on a trip and we went to Sam Houston State to go watch a women's basketball game. The trip went off seamlessly. We went and had pizza, saw the game, took a campus tour. But like on the way back, this weird game where like the phone was being used and the kids were putting each other down with it. I think it was called like Pass the Ball or something to that nature, Pass the Phone. And it started off with them, saying incredibly nice things about one another. But on a 45-minute bus ride home, it turns into the kids saying incredibly mean things about one another. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like a lack of depth or substance in their communication, but for whatever reason, they are defaulting to something like mean, and it's hurtful, right? Like they act like it doesn't hurt on the surface, but then you get kids come to you and say, "Hey, this is what's being done. This is what's being said." So you can tell that like those cuts really do hurt, regardless of how they show it on the surface, because they all walked off the bus like nothing happened. But then slowly I was inundated with some kids letting me know what had happened and how they didn't feel good about it, and they didn't feel good about taking part in it, and they didn't like what they saw. So it was a little bit after the fact, a little hindsight.
Yeah. Do the kids consider this bullying, or they consider this their form of interaction or their form of getting to know each other?
I think they see it in both, right? They see it as bullying after the fact. I think that in the midst of it, that they see it as interaction. And one of the things that clued me into this is that some of like our kindest and gentlest and nicest kids, like they took part in it, and some of them didn't even own phones, right? So it also speaks to peer pressure and how like we can all fall victim to it, right? Everyone else is doing it, therefore I must do it. And those kids, a lot of them showed remorse and they apologized, and we had them pushing towels after the fact, kind of as a repercussion for their actions. The parents spoke to the kids. We made sure to bring it to the parents' attention so that it wasn't something they brought up at the dinner table. It was something that their coach brought to them. But I feel like stuff like that tears at the fabric of a team. So us as coaches, we have to jump in front of it and let them know, like, we're not going to have a culture of meanness. Like, I want a culture of kindness.
Yeah. And I mean, as a coach, are you still in today's age, are you still doing sort of those types of repercussions or punishments? What do you say, where it's like running or physically induced type of stuff? I know it's a sports team and sometimes those get a bad rap, but like, how do you approach those types of situations?
To be honest with you, like, I'm not the biggest person when it comes to like physical repercussions. Like, oftentimes I'll have educators come up to me and tell me about how so and so is misbehaving, and I need to make him do this and I need to make him do that. And I'm not a believer in that. That's a personal problem between you and the student. I am not the judge, jury, and executioner. It could speak to a classroom management, problem on their behalf. But it's like, I don't have these problems with my kids for the most part. Therefore, I'm not gonna, hand out some punishment just because you want me to do it. This was that rare occasion, though, in that rare instance where it was caught right in the moment and not after the fact. And everyone was in agreement. I did not get any pushback. I got several emails saying thank you for tackling the subject sooner rather than later. And I was glad that we went about it that way. And, truth be told, I gathered my strength from a couple of my athletes that came to me and said what was going on and how it made them feel.
Mm,
Because a part of me was like, oh my God, like, I don't want to, jump into the lion's den with this. But if those kids can have the bravery, us coaches should be able to have the bravery to tackle these things.
yeah. That's one of the most beautiful parts about coaching or teaching young people is the mirror they present. Like, I
Mm.
want to be this best version, calm, cool, collected, emotionally regulated, strong, resilient, but also be able to tell my players, my wife, whoever the case may be, that I'm struggling. I need a little bit of help. And sometimes our players just do that so well for us that we're like, okay, I can. Because, usually we think the relationship's the other way around. Like you, Chris, you want to be this person who's a role model, an image that maybe your young people will want to represent when they get older. But it goes both ways. And I think people miss that when they see how powerful these relationships are with young people. I mean, that's why uh, people talk about how having kids, creates the most responsibility that you could ever have, because you have to transform into the best version of yourself in the most consistent basis, right? We're never going to be perfect. We always fumble and make mistakes and yell when we shouldn't, or go get too quick to anger. Of course, of course. But we're saying majority of the time, I have this young person's life in my hands. How can I be my best self? And I think sort of that always keeps me going. I wonder if that keeps you going, being an educator for 20 years. And I know you probably have some days where you just don't feel like it anymore, or had some really, hard instances or circumstances or things of that nature. But I imagine that sort of maybe North Star is important to you.
It's 100% important to me. And like to your question earlier, I want kids to do things for the right reasons. I don't want kids to do things because they're fearful of a repercussion. Like, sometimes, that's the cost of doing business. But like, I really wanted it to get into their head and their hearts that, listen, we're not mean to one another because that's not what good people do, and you shouldn't do it. Shouldn't be nice because coach expects it. You should be nice because, like, that's that's the way everyone deserves to be treated until proven otherwise. So I don't want to operate ever from a place of fear, because I think that that just encourages people to be sneaky, not necessarily discourages someone to do or do not do something.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, I know you teach a teen leadership class as of right. I don't know if you teach any other classes, but I was just listening to you a bunch on other podcasts. And you talk about teaching a teen leadership class, which sounds like an awesome class. But what sort of things are you trying to teach to young people in that type of class?
All right, this is a great question too. I love teaching teen leadership. Right, I do believe that it should be a core class that everyone takes. In the same light, as we have math, English language arts, science, social studies, in teen leadership, we try to teach the young people how to interact with one another, interpersonal relationships, relationships with yourself. So for instance, we give 6 speeches in teen leadership, right? And public speaking always comes up as a top 5 of biggest fears of any human being. I'll say by the second speech, man, these kids are doing some world class speeches, and they weren't aware that they were capable of this. So
Mhm.
we tackle subjects such as like we did a Shark Tank speech, and we gave the kids an opportunity to create a product, a service, a business. And man, you should have seen their little minds go to work. Like, we have so many little entrepreneurs inside of our school setting. I don't think that that's fed very well in public education, but to see these kids, really explore being their own boss and the vision that they have, and just learning that an invention is nothing more than solving a problem, right?
Mm.
And then right now they're doing a speech on a loved one that's still alive, and we're having them record it. And then they're going to pass it on to that loved one that is still alive, give them their roses while they're still here on earth, so to speak. And it just gives them an opportunity to share with their family and their closest friends, how they truly feel. Because if you have kids,
Not yet. Not yet.
oh my God. Hey, so let me give you a glimpse into the future. Like when your
Please.
teenager comes home, they're typically going to be very short, with their responses like, "Hey, how was your day today? Good." You know,
Yeah.
and you get to the house, and they grab a bag of chips and they go to their bedroom. And you know we can fight that as much as we want as parents, but that's just kind of like the way it is. And there's different degrees of that, right? You got the extreme one side where there's zero interaction, and but as a good, law of averages, like in the middle, there's very little interaction. So when these parents and these loved ones get presented with a speech, where these kids are speaking from the heart, and, we've given them a structure on what to say and how to say it, like, oh my God, the emails that I get back they make me want to cry,
Mhm.
right? And then there's also the aspect of videoing them. The kids in their head, sometimes they're like, coach, I wasn't fidgeting when I was talking. I didn't say the word 50 times. And it gives us an opportunity to show them on video that what you feel and what's actually taking place are two different things, right? So I love teen leadership, shaking of hands, the importance of a first impression, and stuff like that.
That sounds like a fucking awesome class. Uh, when did your school introduce that class?
It's been around for a while. Trying to think of the guy who came up with it. It's a very famous public speaker and someone that presents quite a bit. It's not Zig Ziglar. It'll come to me later. But for years, I think it's kind of been a blow off class. Like they give it to coaches, and coaches use it as an opportunity to work on things that they need to work on, because there's so much paperwork being a coach. But when in the right hands, oh my God, is it a deadly tool that can be used for good?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of teaching young people how to get in front of people and talk is holy cow, dude. Like the amount of times you're going to have to go in front of someone in your life and present your case, job, dating, like literally everything in all of our lives is about relationships. That's why I love sports so much. And I know you feel the same way, right? But if we can
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to give their case, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm talking about, and this is why I think it's important. Such a powerful speech. I mean, we did And speaking of shaking hands, we did tryouts a couple weeks ago for my team and probably had 7 or 8 kids come try out. And they're all between the ages of 11 and 14. And you can tell the ones where their dad or mom, whoever it is, taught them that when you shake someone's hand, you have a firm grip and you look them in the eye. About 3 or 4 of them do it. The other 3 sort of look away, they grab you by the fingers, or they don't do it at all. And you can tell where some were like it was a point of emphasis for them. And then you can also see it translate onto the field, how confident they are when they ask questions. Hey, coach, how'd I do? What'd you think about this? Do I need to go here? Where am I at in the process? Just because simply they started off by shaking their hand, saying their name, and looking at me in the eyes. I mean, I'm like 3 feet taller than these little 12-year-olds, but they're still presenting themselves in this way because that's how they were taught, or that was the role model they were presented. And you can see it play out in real life. So it's not like just this meaningless skill of shaking hands because everyone thinks everything is online. It's not. Like it's still about being in the real world, doing real things. And those skills are translatable until we get taken over by robots and we have to, hire Arnold Schwarzenegger to kill all the robots. But, we're not there just yet. Okay.
Well, here's something too. Like the more that it ceases to exist, the more value that it's going to hold, right? So, like when you're in a tryout scenario, and whenever you are in a scenario where you're asking for something, and there's several other people wanting the same thing, like you're going to want a separator. And one of the things that I'm trying to teach my kids is that by doing this, like you're separating yourself from the pack. To your example of the kids trying out for the team, if there's 25 kids trying out for the team, and maybe you only need to fill, like 7 spots. One of the separators is going to be, oh my God, this kid shook my hand, and it's going to cause you to keep an extra eye on him for whatever reason. And that extra little bit of time that you spend looking at him may be the difference between him making your team or not, maybe the difference between you getting the job or not. And so the more things go away, like the more value they end up holding long term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and so right. Do you, with that point, do you think there's a lack of mentorship with youth today, or how do you see that in schools?
I do believe that there is a lack of mentorship, but a lot of it has to do with like this new generation. I think for good or for bad, people have left a lot of the parenting duties, and they've put them, and left it to technology, right? So if my kid is making noises or whatnot, here's the tablet. If my kid is running around, bouncing around, here's my phone. And what that's done is like kids are looking elsewhere, I think, for leadership and mentorship. So I think it's on us, as educators and as parents and as coaches and just people in the community that the kids look at to present them with a good option of what leadership should look like. It should be calm, should be caring. There should be some respect there, which is equal parts, admiration and a little bit of fear mixed in, right? And all of those are components of a good mentor. And I do believe there's a lot of mentor programs. I don't know though, like if those mentor programs necessarily are doing what they're intended to do, like in school systems. And I hope I don't come across as a bad guy, but there's mentorship programs like where they'll slap a tie on a kid, and then they'll bring in someone from the local bank to talk to the kids. And that may have been an effective strategy like 20 years ago, but I'm going to tell you right now, man, them kids are bored, and the tie is just a photo op. And we need more boots on the ground. Like we need, I think so much more could be done, like mentoring where you're playing catch with somebody. There's something a little bit different when you're involved in an activity. You connect a little bit more, and that kind of brings me to what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu into the public school system as an intervention because I don't want to put a tie on a kid. I want to put like a gi and a belt, maybe even a rash guard.
Yeah. I mean, you're just like, it speaks to the power of youth sports, which, could be jiu-jitsu, could be baseball. For me, it was baseball. I know you played baseball as well. But it's got to be something, especially for young boys. I cannot speak so much for young girls. I didn't, I had a sister growing up and she played a lot of sports and was in Girl Scouts and some of those things. There were physical activities for her as well. I'm speaking, on behalf of young boys and young men because I care deeply about them. There can be a breakthrough emotionally with these young boys because I work in mental skills, but it has to be surrounded by something that they care about. Has to be.
Yes.
It has to be, or else you've already fucking lost them. And I get it. They have to go to class. They need to sit in school. I understand that. Like, all of these things they need to learn are important, but they can be embedded throughout the day with things that they actually care about. And it needs to be something physical. We need to teach them that their bodies are powerful and capable and they can do great things, because there is rhetoric nowadays that men only do things that are harmful. And if you teach that to young boys, they're never going to grow up to become the great men and leaders that we need them to be. And because that's how society functions, just like we need great women to be the great leaders and whatever they're going to do as well. It's all the same. But if it's not oriented around something physical or something they care about, you're going to lose them. I mean, you see it in adult men's groups now, Chris. Like, people are going out and they're doing things physical in nature, hunting, hiking, moving around, shooting bows, and then they talk about the serious shit. Okay, why haven't I
Yep.
been intimate with my wife in the last 5 years? Well, now I feel like I can express, because I've moved my body. I'm trusting these men that I'm with, and now I can express the deepest desire or my deepest pain to try to get it resolved. And then we can catch that very early on with these young men who may be coming from a struggling past or a home that's difficult, or a lot of things have happened around them that they don't know what to do, or they don't know what they're capable of, or no one's told them they believe in them. Like, all of these things are incredibly powerful, at least in my eyes. That's why I think youth sports are incredible, especially jiu-jitsu, because there's a lot of aspects to it that are unique to it outside of just like a baseball, soccer, or football. And so, yeah, sort of lost my train of thought, sort of getting fired up about that whole thing. But tell me about your entry into, or if you have a comment, go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say, like, you're 100% spot on. Like, as an educator, my paycheck reflects that I'm a teacher first and then a coach second. But it's being the coach that allows me to get to the students on the educational front. So to hear you express what you said so eloquently, about needing that movement, needing that social lubricant, so to speak. I'm on board with that big time. That's part of the reason I think why I've been as effective as I've been. It's because I'm coach, and it's because, like, typically our interactions are built around, hitting the weights, running at the track, practicing basketball, doing the long and the triple jump. So yeah, I love that point that you made. Like, I'm actually going to probably use that on my next jiu-jitsu in school presentation to whatever school district gives me a look next.
Sweet. Rock on. I mean, and then, like, on top of that, like, it made me think of this something else, is that you build relationships. Like, I just told you before we started recording that I just got married. All of my groomsmen, every single one of them, except I had a woman groomsman, but we all played sports together, either through baseball or wrestling. And why are they my best friends? Because you get in the trenches with these dudes and you build relationships. Yeah, there might be some rizzing. We might have made fun of each other. But ultimately, since we've been in tough situations together, I know they have my back. And why wouldn't I want those people around me on one of the, if not the best day of my life? And so there's another element that we can teach kids. Like, you're going to create great relationships through this because you're doing something. There's a shared mission. There's a shared vision. You're both in the trenches together and we're working through this thing. And now we're linking arms. We're saying, I got you, you got me. Let's fucking ride together. And that's a cool thing to teach a young boy as well. Like, now they got a friend. They got a partner. Not only that, someone to look up to who's doing the cool thing that they might want to do. You're a freaking black belt in jiu-jitsu. Okay. That's 15 years of hard work. I can get there too because Professor Chris has done it. Well, now I got my buddy who wants to join me on the journey. Like, there's nothing more powerful than that to get you through some of this hardship that life's going to bring you, whether, you're a young person who lose someone early, or you have a troubling household, or a single parent is raising you. Like, all of these things are going to happen, but maybe something can help you, motivate you to be your best self, even through those really hard experiences. And there's something to be said about that. And there's something to be said about sports and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm sitting in front of you right now. Baseball, it was the only hook I had. There's nothing about a school day that interested me. I went to class. I slept a lot. I was disinterested. There's nothing going on within those four walls that really captured my attention. But I did know I needed a 70 in order to play baseball, and because I was able to play ball and maintain at least a 70, I did really good things in high school, played a little bit in college, so I'm just trying to bring that along.
Yeah. And then getting to the BJJ part. So I know you played a little bit of baseball, then you got into rugby in college. And then where was the transition into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
So I don't know about up there in Dallas, but like after I left college, like I got really big into the slow pitch softball scene, which is dude, you want to talk about like some dangerous conditions to go play ball?
Oh
You know, you
gosh.
gotta. It's a crazy air, man. You got people like taking. It's already easy enough to hit the ball, right?
Right.
But now people are taking the end caps off. They're shaving the inside, so it has more of a trampoline effect. I mean, it's you're having balls whizzing by your head at like 100 miles an hour. But I got to a point where I was like, this is no longer fun. And not only is it not only not fun, it's dangerous too. So I needed something to fill that time, right? And pickup basketball wasn't doing it. You know, slow pitch softball tournaments weren't doing it. So there was a Gracie Baja school by my house, and I drove around outside for like 2 weeks before I worked up the courage to go in. And I went in, and I met Professor Chad Robichaux and Professor Chad Kite, and I got my first intro lesson. And I thought I was a bad boy, right? I played scrum half for the rugby team, and we were in the national finals, and I was fast, strong, quick. And this guy that was probably like 15 pounds less than me and about an inch or two shorter than me, man, he folded me up like some laundry, you know, just made it look easy and held a conversation with his buddy at the same time. And in my mind, I was like, oh my God, I have to learn this wizardry because all of my athleticism, it meant nothing, you know. So that was my entry into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was looking for that next family to join and take me in, but then also satiate all the physical needs that I need.
Yeah. All right. So we'll just do a couple quick questions on BJJ because we haven't done a lot
Mm-hmm.
about just the art, the history, what it means on this podcast. Listeners may know that I do jiu-jitsu, but it's not something we've extensively talked about. So, what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Just generally speaking, if someone's never seen it, never heard of it.
The best way that I can describe it is that if you've ever watched amateur wrestling, they're not the same, but they rhyme, right? And when I say by rhyme is that they're both grappling arts, but like the ends are a little bit different. Like in amateur wrestling, you're trying to pin your opponent, you're trying to like physically dominate them. You have to be a hammer at all times. And with jujitsu, there is that aspect, right? Like depending if you are a bottom or a top player. But in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the end game is to get your opponent to submit, you know, and that's where they tap out. They can be through chokeholds, you know, joint locks, you know, you can just smother people, you know, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
tap out. But what makes Jiu-Jitsu a little bit different is that there's a little bit more of like an eloquence that goes along with it. There's a little bit more of a thinking's man's game because like you could use technique and routing, you know, and leverage and timing in order to get to that end point. So I say again, it's very much like amateur wrestling, but the end or what we're trying to get to is a little bit different, and then the means on how we get there are slightly different.
Yeah. And then you mentioned your gym. The first name of your gym was Gracie. What is Gracie in relationship to BJJ?
So Gracie, it's the family that was able to introduce, I guess, North America to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they used the UFC as the springboard, and that's where everyone kind of like practiced their own separate martial art, and you had karate, and you had kickboxing, and boxing, and sambo. And one of the Gracies had this idea of, hey, let's create this tournament so we could see, you know, what martial art stands supreme, you know, and they had these one night events. There was 8 guys in the events, and they threw in there one of the smaller ones, one of the less intimidating looking ones, because they could have thrown Hickson in there, who was probably the baddest man on the planet at that time, but they threw Hoist in there, who was a little more unassuming and looked like the average man. And he proceeded to win the tournament. I think that it was a genius marketing ploy. They put all their eggs in that basket, you know, but it worked. It worked, you know, so the Gracie family, I don't want to say they started it because there's a bunch of different stories. I spoke to Robert Drysdale and he was giving me like some different information that I wasn't aware of. So there's a lot of different ways in which the story could go, but we can all agree that the Gracies starting that UFC one, and using that as a platform to show the power of jiu-jitsu is a good place for us to start.
Yeah, good springboard at least. I relate jujitsu a lot to baseball, to be honest, because
Mm.
you hear a lot about baseball that it's a boring sport. It's boring. I don't like to watch it. And it's simply because you're not understanding the intricate details that go into each pitch. Like, why am I throwing this pitch here based on this batter's tendencies in this spot? Why am I moving my players over to this location because he hits the ball over here a little more often? Like, you're not looking at those details. You're just a casual fan saying, oh, I hope this guy hits a home run because that's exciting. But there's so many minor details throughout the game that change the course of the game. And then you're like, it's 3 hours. One play doesn't really mean anything, whatever. And like, no, it means a lot throughout the game. I mean, you watch the World Series, that one inning, which was only in the fourth or fifth inning, there's a lot of game left, changed the whole course of the game. And they end up just getting beat. And they even had a lead going into that inning. You say, wow, they still have 5 more innings of baseball left. What happened? The momentum changed. The ideas changed. The energy changed. All of that matters, even though the game is so long, because they're still dealing with real humans out there, and things happen. And so that's why I love baseball, and that's why I like talking about baseball. When I got into BJJ, you find out it's a lot similar, because you're trying to think a couple moves ahead. You're trying to create the littlest opening to create some leverage, using your own opponent sort of against him. But there's a lot of thinking going on. There's a lot of mental energy being used in such a very physically demanding sport. And I really appreciate that, because that's why I love baseball so much. Baseball is very less physically demanding, a little bit more emotionally and mentally demanding. But jiu-jitsu has some of those same little intricate details that you don't have to be the best athlete in the world to be great at baseball or to be great at jiu-jitsu. But you do have to have a shitload of really, really sharp skill to be the best in the world. Yes, being a good athlete helps, being strong helps, being fast helps, of course. But if you don't have the base layer of skill, you're just going to get beat. Like, I'm 240 pounds, Chris. If I go against the black belt who's, 160, he's going to beat me up, like, because he knows how to use me against me. And I just, whoop, I fall, and I get swept, or my arm's out here because I don't know this location. I'm just trying to use only strength because that's the only sort of thing that I know how to use at this point in my BJJ career, or whatever the case may be. He's using it against me. And that's a cool thing to know and to be able to do, especially in a real life situation, potentially, which we'll get to. But that's why I really like BJJ, and I try to relate everything to baseball. So that's just where my brain went.
Well, you know what's really cool too about the situation you spoke about is it's important to show the kids that even like the people that are at the Mount Everest of the pinnacle of the sport, like even they make rookie mistakes. Aaron Judge dropping that fly ball,
Mm-hmm.
like you alluded to. Oh my God, we would get mad at one of our kids if they dropped that fly ball, in a 12U youth game. And
Yep.
this is someone that, did he win the MVP this year?
Oh yeah,
Well, he was
unanimous.
close.
Unanimous.
And the MVP dropped a fly ball, in the biggest, game of his career. So if he is capable of making a mistake like that, like we're all capable of making mistakes.
Yeah. The best was his post-game interview, took full responsibility, blamed no one else, said, I got to be better. That's a leader. And it's so interesting that
Yeah.
you bring that up, because I was at practice during the World Series with some of my players, and they were like, man, Aaron Judge sucks. He should be taken out of the lineup. I can't believe he's not hitting in the World Series. And I'm like, oh, so the next time you go 0 for 4, you want me to take you out of the lineup and never play you again? They're like, no, coach, why would you do that to me? Well, why are you saying that about Aaron Judge? I'm like, well, coach, he makes $50 million a year. What does it matter? It's the same game. It's the same game, and he's facing the absolute best players in the world, and he's struggling. And so when you struggle, I'm going to still have the utmost confidence in you and put you in the lineup, just like his coach is saying, I have the utmost confidence in you. You're the guy. You're our best player. Let's go out there and get it done. If you don't, we're going to keep trying next year or the year after, whatever the case may be. Yeah, we'll make some tweaks and all that stuff. But I want to have that same confidence in my players. So if you think he sucks and should be kicked out of baseball for going 0 for 4, what about you as a not as
Yeah.
skilled, not as talented baseball player? I want to still have the confidence in you, Go ahead.
This is what I was speaking to earlier about kids and them being mean. Like that is the default. I had a kid tell me the other day, the day before Wemby scored 50 points, how Wemby's trash. And I was like, oh, please tell me, tell me how Wemby is trash. And he's like, well, his team is one of the worst in the NBA, and he's only averaging like 18 points a game. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, you do realize, like, this is unanimously probably the greatest basketball prospects since LeBron James. He's on a struggling team, but this is par of the course for a struggling team, right? Like, you're not going to be world beaters, with a 19-year-old on the court. And that's just the way that the kids are talking to each other now. They're just like quickly going to like, you're ugly, you're trash, your team sucks. And then the conversation starts after that. So I just wanted to point that out whenever you said it in the moment. Like, that's what I was directly speaking to. But that's how all their interactions are starting.
So interesting. Like, I know when I was younger, we talked a little shit, but
Yes.
like, if I loved a player, I loved him no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, that's my guy. But it's, I can't remember like what happened when we were younger. We were saying and doing different stuff than they're doing now, and maybe it was just as bad, or I don't know. It's hard to tell which was good and which was not. I just know that being inside of those relationships, with sports changed my life for the better. But speaking of that, how has your jiu-jitsu journey been? What have you learned about yourself? Where are you at now with it? Is there still a love for the game? All of those sorts of things.
And it's been a beautiful journey. It started back in 2009. I was almost 30 years old at the time. And I still had that competitive spirit, burning inside of me, so I competed early and often, and I did quite well. Like, I was pretty darn good, as a white and a blue. But something that started to creep into my psyche was like, this is a little bit selfish of me, so I was spending more time at the gym in order to be, a better competitor. I was spending more money on tournaments and competitions, whereas I should have been spending more time, helping my kids and my wife and whatnot. So I kind of like jujitsu taught me to also like see the balance, and it told me that, Chris, you're out of balance. You're in a grouchy mood because you're always dieting to get down to the ideal weight. You're out of the house way too much, and now your wife's having to take the kids to practice more than she needs to. So the thing that was pulling me away also taught me, balance in real time. So I kind of just like went into the hobbyist mode to where, I train about 3 or 4 times a week in a perfect world. Try to get my weightlifting in, my walking in, but it's a pace that I can push even at 45 years of age. Like, I can still go in there, for an hour and a half and go roll with the boys, and have plenty of juice left afterwards to spend time with the family. I prefer this much more because on the other end of it, like, there was a bunch of anxiety about competing. There was a bunch of like moodiness from food deprivation and dehydrating myself. Like, as much as I enjoyed like a $10 medal, I'd much rather, eat my pizza on Friday night and just stay in pretty decent shape.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you get your black belt?
3 years ago. Been a black belt for 3 years. I think it was like 21 or something. Every time my professor gets a stripe on his black belt, we got him we didn't get our black belts at the same time, but he got one of his promotions, and it tells him, because I think it's like every 3 years before you get another stripe.
Wow.
So we're kind of like on the same pace. He's got like 3 or 6 more years more than me, but he's a fighter in the UFC, right? Like, he's a professional. This is what he does.
Yeah. Damn. What else has jiu-jitsu taught you before we get into bringing it to the youth?
It's made me such a much more like calm and kind human being.
Yeah.
Prior to jiu-jitsu, I had been in quite a few altercations. I got that little man syndrome. I'm 5'6", 170. So kind of like the proverbial Chihuahua back in the day that I barked a lot, but Chihuahuas bark because there's a feeling of inadequacy, right? Like, I felt like I needed to make myself bigger than I really was, and jiu-jitsu taught me that there's a lot of sharks swimming around, so I need to keep my mouth shut. But then it also gave me the confidence to know that if anything happens, I can take care of myself. Therefore, I don't need to go around wearing tap out shirts and affliction shirts and bumping my gums. Like, it's a quiet, cool confidence, and it comes across in my interactions, my coaching, my teaching, been married 23 years, so it's really helped my marriage quite a bit. It's been something that has worn away the rough edges.
Mhm. Yeah. And you would think that most people think when you do combat sports, it would be the opposite, that you get more aggressive. You want to fight out people all the time. And that's why I think your initiative for getting into the schools, people might have some hesitation, but if they think about it, it's the absolute reverse. You become way, like you're saying, just way more centered and calm. And like someone tries to fight you, you're like, nah, no thanks, man. I'm good. I already had a bunch of rolls earlier with my buddies. Like I don't need to fight you. It's all good. You
Yeah,
talk your way out of these situations. Like I've talked to some of the toughest, baddest dudes on the planet, and they all say, "Why would I get into a fight? I'll just give him whatever he needs, and I'll protect my family. We'll go home. We'll fight for another day." Because my ego is not on the line anymore. My ego is not. I'm good. But when you're like think you're the baddest guy and you got to prove to everyone, you're going to try and fight that dude, and you don't know what's going to happen if he's got a knife, a gun, or whatever, and you may never get to see your family again. Those things are on the line when you're talking about real life altercations. And so if there's a way to possess this calmness
yeah,
that you could,
and that's
go
the.
go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry, stretching my neck.
Oh,
But
okay.
I guess yeah, just to your point,
Yeah.
it 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 calms the savage soul. It calms the savage soul, and it'd be nice if everybody at one point or another, was pinned underneath like a 225-pound guy, and then you were forced to kind of have to keep your cool, center your breathing, and try to mentally and physically, route your way out of this tough situation. And it's amazing to see like how that singular action transfers over to like being in a boardroom and having a tough discussion with like one of your superiors, or maybe being on a phone call with an angry parent, or maybe even accidentally rear-ending somebody and it not coming to blows, because like you can stay cool in the tough situations, because that's what you do it for like an hour and a half every time you go to the gym.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, perfect segue into this initiative you're trying to start of getting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu inside of schools, not as an after-school program, if I'm correct, right? But inside the school day.
Yes, sir. I want to do this inside of a school day. I don't want to be a club outside where I feel like it wouldn't be respected like that. I think people would show up just whenever, and there'd be some days you'd be there after school waiting and no one would show up. So I know that we can use it as like a physical education credit, right? That is like one way in. I know that we can use it as an intervention. We could work with kids that are making poor choices, that whose needs are not being met inside of the school day for whatever reason. Maybe they need some more physical activity. Maybe they need a mentor. Maybe they need a little physical humbling, right? And then also, like, what about the kids that are getting bullied right now? Like, bullying is a huge buzzword. They show us so many professional developments and what we should do. Like, how about like some of these kids that are getting bullied? How about like we educate them, on how to defend themselves, so that they too can also uh, like have a means to an end, right? So I think that it's an idea whose time has come. I most certainly do not want to turn it into a watered down version of jujitsu where we have too many people in there, and then we got some slappy teaching it. Like, I want to maintain jujitsu's integrity, and I want to keep these classes small, maybe 10 to 15 people max. I'd love to integrate some of the knuckleheads with some of the high flyers of our school, so that that camaraderie bond that you were talking about earlier, like, because we've gone through some shit, we've become comrades, which is something one of my friends, Cody Oxygen, said. It's the difference between, friendship and camaraderie, and when you're a comrade, that means you've gone through some stuff together. So I think that we could most definitely impact the culture of a school if like we could get both ends to intermingle. I think we could impact the culture of a school, like if we could go after the 5% that eat up like 80% of the administrator's time. Like, these are things that are doable, but it's not going to be done with throwing a tie on them and then having the local banker speak to them. Like, we're going to have to play catch with them. We're going to have to throw the football around with them. We're going to have to put them in an armbar.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be in the trenches with them to show them that you
Yes.
care. Like, I'm here with you, man. We're fighting this struggle together. Um, and I've trained at two jujitsu gyms in my lifetime, and every professor that I've had would jump at the opportunity to show up at a school and train jujitsu for an hour in the middle of a day. Like, all the professors that I know just want to teach, just like you, want to pass on the lessons that have absolutely transformed their life. Uh, and it's even better with kids who know nothing about the sport, maybe what they've seen on social
Yes.
or what they've seen at UFC, because it's mega popular now, which is awesome, which means that this thing is more likely to happen because there's so many really popular people who express the same ideas that you do. They don't have this initiative yet, which I think is incredible and could change probably every school district in America. But we'll start with Houston. We'll go from there. But amazing, man. Anything else you wanna mention about why you think that might help kids?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about like some of the things people say that are drawbacks, and I hear about it like being dangerous, but it can't be more dangerous than football. Kids are throwing on helmets and they're getting concussions left and right. They're breaking limbs. There's kids dying of heat stroke. And collision injuries. I think at like the third week of football season here in Texas, I think there'd already been like 7 deaths across the country that have occurred because of football. I don't want to end football. Like, hey, if you sign your kid up for football, it's kind of like you understand what you're getting yourself into. But what I am trying to, I guess, say is like jujitsu is not any more or less dangerous than football, right? So that argument of it being dangerous to me, it's a fallacy. It's false. And then from a funding perspective, I think that the community would jump all over this. Like, I don't think raising money to get some mats, and matting out a room would be an issue. I think that the jujitsu community or the MMA community as a whole would love to wrap their arms around an idea like this. You mentioned, I don't know a professor that wouldn't like to come in during the day and teach an hour of jujitsu to a bunch of high risk kids. And you're right. I agree with you 150%. In fact, I believe that some of these gyms would even offer like scholarship programs to these kids after they graduated high school if they looked promising and looked like they had they wanted to possibly make a career of it. The CGI, did you see the Craig Jones Invitational?
Yeah, I watched a bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's proven that this is a new career opportunity. So
Hmm.
it's not just like some obscure sport that you can't make money off of. Like you can make $1 million in a night now. And how nice would it be, to be someone that started off one of these young people. They started off in a program like that, whereas like they were going to a road of nowhere before that, and oftentimes jujitsu, we'll say like the MMA route, jujitsu is like the entry point for people that start mixed martial arts. Like this could be a possible career route, like if you don't want to play football and you don't want to play baseball, well, how about you come over here and train some jujitsu, and then we can get you, to the next gym that's around the corner, or whoever would like to adopt you into their program, almost like a feeder system, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's an idea whose time has come. It's going to take a brave school district that needs a bit of good publicity. I don't know if my school district's going to take a chance on me. They're a little bit uptight, and I understand. I understand, but I'm hoping one of these school districts in Houston that need a bit of good publicity, they'll jump on this because, like, it's going to happen sooner or later, right? Now it's just a matter of like, do you want to be the one that took a chance on it, and it ignited this fire, or do you just want to join on the bandwagon later? So that's my 2 cents on getting jujitsu into the school system.
And there is already substantial evidence that this could work. Now, it's evidence from a different population because there's this thing called the We Defy Foundation, um, where they give scholarships to veterans to do jujitsu. And it's already a proven track record that these veterans who have a lot of maybe PTSD or issues coming off of what they've seen from war come and start doing jujitsu. It creates the same like thing that we're talking about: a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, a sense of commitment, relationships, all things that people need no matter what stage they are at in life. And so there's a proven track record for it working for not disabled, maybe they're disabled potentially, but just veterans who've seen war for Now, okay, let's transfer it to our young people who, according to all the evidence and anecdotal evidence, are really, really, really struggling. Higher rates of anxiety, higher rates of depression, body image issues, very little social skills, trouble with relationships. Like, something has to be done differently. We can't just keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again and expecting our kids to be the best they can be. And so this, I think, could be the change that changes the trajectory, that gives them that sense of purpose or honor or duty or respect or love for themselves because they've done this thing that's really hard. All of these things that potentially could come from simply just, rolling with your friends for 45 minutes throughout the middle of the day.
Yeah, and that's where people like yourself are going to be, y'all are going to be important in this fight to get jiu-jitsu into the system, because like you're giving me a platform in order to share my ideas. What I have found is that when I email people or I shoot phone calls, like I am conveniently ignored, or I'm given like very basic and short answers, and it's easy to do that from the other end of a keyboard. But what I found is like by going to social media and having this conversation with educated people like yourself, and on your platform, that like now there's credence being given to the idea because other people are hearing it. They're like, oh, I do know this is a good idea. I train myself, so that share button's getting hit a lot. And it's going to take people like yourself. It's going to take the Jocko Willinks. It's going to take the Joe Rogans, the Lex Friedmans, the Chael Sonens, the DCs, people that are a part of this ecosystem, this combat sports ecosystem, and for them to trumpet the benefits of combat sports on our youth. Like, I think that's what it's going to take to get this conversation really, really, really moving. And, I pray to God that, like Dana White's listening and he's like, hey, what can I do to help get this initiative going? And it'll just be, I just need your voice, just help me, because I know the good that we can do, because I know that it has done a lot of good for me, and I'm willing to put my 20 years in education and all the good works that I've done, as a teacher of the year, humanitarian of the year, multiple district championships. Like I'm willing to put all of that on the line for an opportunity to do this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Really is beautiful. Tell me about your new book, Flow State.
All right. So I'm an author too. We talked about all kinds of stuff, but I also write books. I've written 6 children's books, and this last one, it's called Flow State, and it's a book about all the benefits of training combat sports can have on our youth. And I'm a big fan of the Houston MMA scene, so I talk to a lot of my friends in the community. Like our head coaches Matt Wald and Alex Morano, and talk to crew Bob Perez, over there at Houston Muay Thai, and Mike Corley, the head of the United States Muay Thai Federation, and just any and everyone in the Houston area. And I use them as like artistic representations, but every page is embedded with like a different lesson that martial arts teaches the youth, like leaving your ego at the door, resilience, and so on and so forth. So you could literally open up the book at any page and get kind of like a Dr. Seuss meets GSP rhyme pattern and rhyme scheme, to some beautiful artwork and a short little passage that rhymes.
And I know that Jocko's team said they're going to take a look at your book. What does that mean to you? Are you excited, a little bit nervous? Anything going to come about that? What's your feelings there?
Yeah. So number one, I am just incredibly blessed that they said that they would take a look at it. It could mean everything, and it could mean absolutely nothing at all. But I'm open to like collaborating. I'm open to changing up the artwork and let them keep the words, and then like rebranding with Way of the Warrior Kid or something. I see it as almost like a Kobe Bryant, like a short cartoon, like a Dear Basketball that he had written. I could see it turn into that. I've also had these ideas. Do you remember the movie Clerks?
Maybe.
It was a Kevin. So it was an old cult classic. It's a Kevin Smith movie. It's where Silent Bob and Jay are a couple of the lead characters. But long story short, it's a story about what happens in a 24-hour time period at a convenience store. And like it leads with like a word, and then there's a scene, and it kind of like shows you what that word means throughout with the scene. I could kind of even see like the book turning into like a movie or a cartoon where the word will say like resilience, and there's just like a short 5-10 minute scene that shows a young person inside of a gym or a dojo or whatever you want to call it, and how he learns resilience on the mats, and just go through all 10 pages with the different lessons that I learned. So uh, at the root of me, I'm very creative and I've got crazy visions, and I could see some really cool things coming about this. So Jocko, um, if you're listening, man, throw your boy a bone. I want to side with you guys.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Yeah. And then there's one other book that I wanted to talk to you about, was the one you wrote about your mom. Um, I
Mm.
That piqued my interest because I have an amazing relationship with my mom and my dad. I'm incredibly lucky to have both my parents have supported every endeavor that I've ever wanted. I mean, if you got parents who support you becoming a professional wrestler, then you've got the fucking best parents in the world.
You
So
do.
and we'll go to shows and see their son parading around in his underwear and all that great stuff. But so yeah, shout out to my parents. But what made you write that book about your mom, and she holds a special place in your heart, obviously.
Yeah. So that was the first book, and my mom was probably, or not was, is the single biggest influence in my life, and so many there's so many different like ways that this story could have ended up. Where I'm selling drugs in the neighborhood with the homies, or I don't finish high school, or I just sleeping on her couch still. But that tough love that she gave me as a single mom, raising me and my brother, we weren't the easiest to handle. But her her ability to have the hard skills and the soft skills, and raise two good young men. My brother is a SWAT team guy over here in Montgomery County.
All
So
right.
she put out two quality human beings, but this was my way of giving her roses while she was still alive. And again, like all of my books, each page follows like a rhyme scheme. And for that particular book, it was a lesson that, my mom taught me, so there's like a page on how to treat a woman. There's a page on showing kindness, showing respect, and so on and so forth. And each of my books are eerily similar. They're just about things that I love, right? Like I got a book as a teacher who sees these troubled kids, but I see also the gifts that they have, like our entrepreneurs who they get in trouble for selling chips. But I do know that, if you buy a bag of chips for a quarter and you sell it for $1, that kid's going to be doing all right when he gets out of school.
Hmm.
So what may get him ISS in junior high, may get him rich, whenever they're out of school. And I've got other books, one about my pops. I got one about being a coach and the lessons I want my athletes to really take from sports. Um, I just enjoy telling stories.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Have you always been a creative person like that, or you found that later on in life?
I think I've kind of been creative. I was always enamored with like creating logos and designs, and I'd write random stories when I was little. Um, but COVID gave me the opportunity to really like sit and work on these things because it moves really fast, and
Hmm.
we have to make time for stuff like this. And I never made time for stuff like this. So COVID gave me the opportunity to make time for that muse that had been communicating to me for years, and I never really moved on.
That's beautiful. Chris, is there anything that we missed that you want to touch on that I didn't ask you, or how are we feeling about this?
No, I mean, I think we hit everything, man. I think one of the cool things we didn't talk about is like pro wrestling, though, man. Like,
Oh,
you're a pro wrestler, and dude, hey, let me give you guys your roses, man. Like, what you guys do uh, is incredibly like brave and bold. To you spoke about your parents supporting that. You got a real one. Your
yeah.
parents are a real one. That if they were able to back you up on that dream, because there's very little money in it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of injuries that are going to come unless you're in the WWE. I don't think you get insurance. Like,
No.
holy smokes, like that's a labor of love. But that's one of the reasons why, like, I get down with those New Texas boys and those reality of wrestling guys, because I see young people chasing a dream, and I just want to be able to like jump in and help and do my part. So kudos to all the young professional wrestlers. Kudos to you who chased that dream and, just at least got to see where it took you. I'm sure you got some pretty cool usable skills out of the whole experience.
Super cool, man. I mean, to be able to be it out in front of an audience, to talk, to advocate for myself, to send emails, to ask for promotions, to book me. I mean, just a ton of, basically didn't know I was becoming an entrepreneur when I became a professional wrestler, because I'm my own business. And if I don't advocate for myself, I'm never going to get on any shows. No one's going to ever see me. I mean, and so you get in these cars with your buddies for 15 hours, not even know if you're booked on a show, hoping to get a 6-minute match, to just keep elevating and elevating and elevating and elevating. And it's all a journey, and it teaches you that like nobody's coming to save you. You got to do this shit. And so it is really chasing a dream. And if you don't absolutely love it, then it's going to be a tough road. I mean, I told my parents when I was 13 years old, I'm either going to be a professional baseball player or a professional wrestler. And I pursued both dreams to the very end of my capacity. And amazing, no regrets, loved every single second of it. And so if you love something, life is too short. You got to go for it, and you got to go all the way in. I think most things will work themselves out. You still got to take care of yourself, and you don't want to ignore your relationships, all those things, but you do have to have a single vision if you want to do something really, 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 really amazing. So, yeah, it's funny that you say, give them your flowers, because there's my buddy who's a professional wrestler right now. His name is Richard Holiday. He lives out on the East Coast.
Oh, the iPod God.
Yes. Yeah. You probably saw him at Reality of Wrestling, maybe. But his whole shtick right now is give me my flowers. I'm here right now doing my best work. Don't wait until I'm in WWE or AEW or, I stop wrestling. Give me my flowers now. No, he uses it as a heel, right? But it's still very much true. Like we always wait. We always wait until the catastrophic moment or the death potentially, right? Like to tell someone, like how you do with your kids in your class, like, man, if you love someone, you love something, tell them right now, appreciate them right now. Like the last time could be the last time. And all we have is this moment. And so I think that's really cool. So thanks for bringing that up, Chris. I mean, I could talk to you about professional wrestling for the next 4 hours, but I wanted to make sure we hit the most important parts so your initiative gets out there and we can start moving that forward. But yeah, man, I appreciate it. Glad to know you. And where can people find you if they want more of you?
Yeah, I have a landing page where you can find my books and my podcast and some of the other things I do, my speaking ventures. It's CoachOrtiz.com, and it's exactly how it sounds, last name Ortiz. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I don't know, man, just thank you for giving me a platform to speak. Hopefully, I don't need a million people to hear this. I just need the right one to hear it, and give me an opportunity. And thank you, man. I cannot say thank you enough. So have a blessed one. You're a good dude, man. And I think we need to hook up, man, because wrestling, baseball, jiu-jitsu, it's like crap, man.
It's the coolest stuff. Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.